We're three best friends, and we love Lost, and we love talking. But even more so, we love talking about Lost. So join us for some good conversation, some laughs, and let's get lost together.
Hello, hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to this week's episode of Let's Get Lost.
Welcome.
We're a little rusty. We're a little rusty, guys. We're a little rusty. It's been a few weeks since we recorded, and so we have apparently forgot what we're doing.
We forgot everything.
It's pretty.
So if it's a little...
Did I hit record? Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we're recording.
We're recording. We're talking. There's
This
no
is
dead
good.
silence anymore. We're ready to go.
We're ready to go. So, what episode are we talking about this week?
Okay, so today we're talking about episode 11, All the Best Cowboys Have Daddy Issues. Written by Javier Grillo Mark Swatch and directed by Stephen Williams. So after the news about Hurley's consensus is discovered, Jack and Locke try to find Claire, but discover that she and Charlie are missing. As Jack impulsively goes off to search for her, he finds himself on a collision course with the dangerous and mysterious Ethan Rom. After joining the search for Claire, Boone and Locke make a discovery that will change the lives of everyone on the island.
Nice. Yeah, it's a crazy episode. Okay, so let's hit you up with some triv.
I'm not ready. I'm worried I'm going to fail.
If I can find it.
It's like I'm rusty.
Okay. So, trivia for Cowboys and Daddy Issues. Okay. When Jack is trying to revive Charlie, how many times does he hit his chest?
8.
You didn't make a sound.
Why was that so sultry? Oh my
I
god.
liked it.
What? 8.
Incorrect.
I'll steal.
Excuse me, you didn't make a sound.
Dun, 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 dun. 12.
Incorrect.
I'd like to steal the steal.
Make a sound. Different one if you're stealing.
We have to go back.
Okay.
15.
Also wrong. I'll give you a hint. Numbers.
That's what I was trying.
I wasn't even going there. 42.
Wrong.
16.
23.
Dang it.
His number.
His number.
Oh, guys.
Check
I don't
it
even know
out.
that.
Number.
Jax.
Do they know that already?
No, but they don't even know what we're talking about with the numbers if they haven't watched it.
What's a number?
They either know or they don't.
Yep. Okay. So this one's a draw in that nobody got it right.
We went around the answer. Oh my god.
Okay. Who was originally supposed to go with Locke instead of Boone?
Oh, dun 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 dun.
Amanda?
I hope this is the correct answer. They were actually going to introduce 2 new characters, and then they decided instead of introducing new characters, they would just have Bone go.
That's right. They were going to introduce Arthur and Sullivan. Perhaps Sullivan from Solitary, that really annoying guy. So I'm really glad they didn't.
I think that is what happened. Is
Oh.
that Sullivan, because that's the only episode Sullivan's ever in.
Yeah. That was super annoying. He was the
The
hypochondriac. Yeah.
No.
I'm curious about that just before we move on. I know you have one more for us, but do you think they were going to introduce more characters just to show us that? Were they concerned? Maybe do you think that now anytime we saw a new character, we were going to assume there's something weird about them?
I think so.
So they were like, let's throw some.
I think originally they threw in a few to like not make it seem so weird. Why is this Ethan being introduced? But now then they had Sullivan and then they had a few others. But then at this point, it's like, yeah, if they kept introducing new ones, it would feel suspicious.
That's fair.
Okay. What was the original cliffhanger supposed to be for this episode?
What is the cliffhanger for this episode? Oh, yeah.
They just made gestures.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
I don't actually think I know this, but that whether Charlie was dead or not.
Yeah, that was. And then they decided that actually we're going to introduce finding the hatch really early on in the episode, but they moved it to be the cliffhanger.
I think that's a better cliffhanger.
I don't know why. There wasn't really much reasoning, but interesting that Yeah, Charlie, and that because when they found Charlie, that did feel like a cliffhanger.
Absolutely. But you know what I liked? And we're going to, as we always do, go over and back and forth and all over. I think that the emotional tone of Jack saving him fit better in this episode than it would be if we started with that level of intensity.
Agreed.
In the next episode. Like, it fits 100%. So well with his backstory.
Yeah. Alrighty. So you guys did pretty good, actually. Amanda did some homework.
I did no homework.
I actually, it's not even that. Essentially, I wanted to know before I started watching this episode today whose flashbacks we were getting.
Right.
And so I just happened to look at the episode, which also brings me to something I want to talk about later in the episode when we talk about his flashbacks. But I think before we go too far into the episode, we should just talk a little bit of some stuff that we've been kind of...
Let me interject because I know where you're going with this. Okay, so the other day, we have a Let's Get Lost group chat between the three of us. And frequently we get YouTube videos sent to us, to Teresa and I, from Amanda. And the one she sent us the other day was captioned with, "I legit cry every time." Is that where you were headed, Amanda?
Yes, because I was looking at it again.
Oh my God.
And I am obsessed.
You're
and first of all, so maybe we'll put it on our Facebook page because I want everyone to experience this, but trigger warning and spoiler alert. It's very emotional, so trigger warning on that. You will feel the feels and you will cry. Second of all, it is the entire show, so don't watch it unless you've seen the whole thing.
We're definitely going to have some spoilers.
But it was this phenomenon, and I'm honestly curious as to whether this is still a thing. But I remember 2010 was when this show ended, and it was very common back then for these, like, fans to make these, like, fan videos. And one of the ones that they made was, like, a collage, I guess, or a clip. They put all these clips together, montage, of all the most emotional scenes in the show, set to Leona Lewis's version of Run. And you guys, it is beautiful.
If you need to cry.
If you need to just get a little, like, reminder of the, like, overall, it's about 5 minutes long, of just the overall tone of the show, set to a beautiful song, please go watch that right now.
But it's true because I don't, you're right. I don't know if that's still a thing, but that was so common.
I think it's still a thing. Like, I know even like with the MCU, people are making like fan trailers and stuff for stuff that's coming out. So I feel like with people getting more into like, like video and all that fun stuff. Like,
I think now it's more like probably TikTok and Instagram story clips versus.
I think there's still some because I know, Matt and I have been watching How I Met Your Mother, and like they're definitely like compilations, and in searching for the compilations, I would find like fan videos.
Like Robin and Ted Forever set to like Picture by Ed Sheeran and like things like that. Like they do still
songs,
exist, but they were way more popular back then because in fact the one I was looking for, because I obviously went looking for this, was one that was set to Run by Snow Patrol.
Oh.
And it started with a Sun and Jin. The reason I know this so well is the one with Leona Lewis's Run starts with a Christian Jack scene. And the one with Snow Patrol's Run started with a Jin and Sun scene. And I do remember that 10 years later. So I was looking for that one, but I found this one equally emotional. But it just kind of reminded me of like just some of the crazy stuff the fans did. And like still kind of, I think some do. Like, I don't know about you guys.
Oh, yes, they do.
But like I have a friend. She named her child after Sawyer.
Wow.
And like legitimately I have confirmed with her. She's told me before that it was for Sawyer. We've already heard about how Rory dressed up as Locke for Halloween. I'm sure that's not completely. I'm sure there's
probably
tons of that.
pretty common. Yeah.
I dressed up as a character as well that you haven't seen yet, kind of. For my 23rd birthday, I guess, my friend made me this like beautiful Lost theme cake, which maybe will pop up on our social media.
Yeah, we should put that up because it's amazing. I love that.
They did a great job.
Really good job.
But just like that was kind of like there was a lot you could do with that. And it was kind of for me the first show I was really like that with, I think.
Yeah, and I think we sort of briefly talked about it like on the first episode or second episode about how it got people into the fandom. But like for me, I think I really got stuck on reading like fan theories. So going to like the forums, and I didn't go on Reddit at the time, but the Reddit like websites, but they were more or less just forums, like separate their own for like lostforums.com or whatever. And we were just reading fan theories of what things could be. Like at the time when I was looking at them, the show hadn't ended yet, so everyone's trying to figure stuff out about what could it be. But even now, I think we're all on a few Facebook groups about Lost, and I love when people post things about a certain fan theory that they've just had.
Yeah.
And for the most part, or even on like the Lost Reddit and stuff, like people will post, fan theory, like could it be this? And I love reading that because it's so interesting to see like someone's imagination go wild with the show, that it's still percolating inside their mind, or living rent free, as the kids say these days. Like, and I mean, that was what I was always obsessed with, like trying to like look at clues and find the fan theories, and I never had any of my own. I'm not that creative, but like I loved seeing other people's.
Well, and I just love that it's still going, because like obviously we all watched it when it was on, and like we're in our 30s or whatever, so we would have been like really into it when it happened. And like I said, Lost was over when my friend made me that cake, but just slightly over. Like I turned 23 in 2011, so it would have only been over for like a year.
Yeah.
And for the like 5th anniversary of the finale, we had like a little viewing party. But it's kind of fun to see, like in the group that we're in on Facebook, someone just posted about like their like 15-year-old daughter having like a Lost themed birthday party.
I love
like in 2022.
So
Yeah.
cute.
So like it's interesting to see like the shows that like kind of have that staying power, and like you can still find like tons of memorabilia.
Like on our wall here, there's a poster, a fan made poster that we got, or that I got from I think an artist on Etsy. Like people are still creating Lost stuff to this day, and that includes the recent party that we had, which we're gonna get into on another episode. But like all about, we threw this really fun Lost launch party for us and our friends, mostly just for us, but it was great. But we're gonna post a bunch of pictures and show us some of that, because it was super fun.
Yeah, and it's just interesting because like you said, there is probably like Game of Thrones and things like
True.
that, and
Stranger
there's
Things.
probably TikToks of like lists of things, and there's like Miss Mojo on YouTube who does usually stuff about shows, and like there still is all that stuff, but I still feel like there's like it is just one of those like iconic. And I think it probably comes from the fact that like people really love this show or really don't like
exactly. It's polarizing.
Yeah. And like I love that people name their children after characters and like this and that. But
If I had a kid, I would name him or her Seven. It's not Lost related.
it's Seinfeld related.
It is. How were you into the fandom, or were you? Because not everybody was. That's the other thing. You could enjoy Lost without being super into fandom.
I mean, I wasn't that into the fandom. Like, I didn't check the forums. I think I only watched the fan videos that, like, Hess sent me. And I did do that, like, Jack and me photo.
Yes.
That's true.
But other than that, I think the only other thing that I didn't look into anything, but you know how on Facebook you could put, like, a quote on the side?
Oh, yeah.
For, like, a hot minute? One of them was, in the shadow of the statue is where I'm always gonna lie. And it was from a fan video, and I had that on forever with my picture of myself and Jack.
She wasn't in any of the fandoms.
No
though, you
fandoms.
guys.
Yeah, but I didn't go crazy. Like, I didn't, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't look into anything. I didn't have any theories. I didn't go in the forums. Like, 2004 was what, when was the OC?
2003 to 2007.
That's why.
You were deep into OC.
I was deep in the OC fandom.
Okay, fair enough.
I do think it's interesting, though. I think you made a good point, Kip. Like, when a show is that, like, meta, almost, like, and when you have so many questions about it, and, like, each week, like, you can leave with a million questions, like, that does drive you, I think, to a fandom more than, like, watching, you know, One Tree Hill did or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's rude. I just said I was in the OC fandom.
Yeah, but the OC was very different from One Tree Hill.
Yeah,
the OC was like...
They always compared them.
I know, but the OC has a very different tone than almost any other teen drama. And as someone who is quite into teen dramas.
We know.
To this day, just finished Never Have I Ever.
She made me watch it with her.
I don't know what that is.
Exactly. You're a
made me watch-
respectable
She made
30-year-old.
me watch Riverdale when it came out.
Oh no!
I stopped watching that really
She's
quickly.
like, I love Archie. I'm like, this is not the same thing.
This isn't like, oh, that Jughead eating another burger.
No,
I
it's like
quickly
they're all
learned that, you
doing crazy things, solving mysteries. Like Scooby Doo is like on steroids. Like it's ridiculous.
My point is, as someone who likes drama, like I'm glad we went off that tangent. Teen dramas, the OC did have a very different tone.
I mean, I was also in the ER fandom for like I was pretty deep into that one.
But what do you mean by fandom? Like,
Yeah, if you're a
I
fan,
can really tell you about some other fandoms.
No,
I've been
because
in.
okay, like when I say fandom, I mean like I was a shipper.
Yeah,
what's that?
So like you ship like couples.
well, it's not even that. You also named your animals after characters.
Yeah,
From,
I named my cat Noah after Noah Wiley, and I named my dog Luca after Luca Kovac from from ER. But like a lot of things that I did were very much around those fandoms and not so much Lost.
I named my dog after a contestant on the first season of Survivor. Just saying,
Who?
Kelly.
Oh, right. Duh.
Or Kelly.
She was
last
the
name.
runner-up.
Oh.
I don't even remember the first one.
So-
was it Richard?
Yeah.
Richard, yeah. I remember the first season of
Love Survivor.
Aren't they
Love
on, like,
Survivor.
That was
1 million?
huge.
I don't even know now.
Yeah,
They still do it.
it's like season 48 or something.
Do they
crazy.
still do The Amazing Race?
They do. I actually like The Amazing Race. I think that's so much fun to watch.
Reality shows have a lot of staying power because
What was that one where you ate weird things?
Fear
Fear
Factor.
Factor.
Fear
That was
Factor.
dumb. Was that the introduction of Joe Rogan?
Was he on that?
Wasn't he the host?
I thought he was on Survivor. No,
No,
the other
that's
guy.
Don't
Probst.
say that about him.
Sorry, I don't know. Like I
Poor
haven't watched
Jeff.
Survivor in ages. I haven't watched Survivor in ages.
Okay, well,
We've
You
gotten
guys,
so
he
off-
was in fact the host.
I thought so.
Fear.
Ew.
Okay.
I hate Joe Rogan. I probably shouldn't say that on any podcast.
No,
because
because
he's
you'll
like
be shamed.
the king of podcasts.
Exactly. He'll get his. We'll stop here.
But yeah, I just think it's interesting. Like as we were kind of throwing the party and planning it, it was really easy to find stuff
Totally.
because other people are doing that.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's really nice. And like I said, it works because even 12 years later, I put that video on and I cried. So
Can I just say too? I mean, this is less about the fandom and more about just like as the more we watch it, like each week we get into it. It's interesting to me that there is still so much love for it because it does seem it feels so different than shows nowadays.
Yeah.
In the pacing, in the way, like, and then obviously the number of episodes and everything. Like, there was a recent article with Lindelof where he said he wishes he could have done it in 4 seasons. That would have been what he would have liked. And I get that. I think he's thinking in today's terms of streaming shows where you have a legit, like basically every episode filmed at one time or at least planned for the entirety of the show. But like in 2003 or 4, like when we talked about this before, it was a very different time for TV. There was no streaming services, and you can see the difference in the show. Like it doesn't
100%.
feel like a streaming show. And I think I want to know if, well, we kind of hear that in Dan's hot take sometimes, how like he's more used to streaming shows than network shows, and you can kind of hear how it's harder to get into because it feels very different.
because you weren't supposed to, binge them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just, they're made differently. And the thing is, I think when Damon Lindelof says stuff like that, it's because like in his mind, he probably could have done that.
Yeah.
And he probably did do that to a degree. But then you have the network coming in saying,
Yes.
well, what about this? And then that's where I think there's some of these like disjointed moments that you'll hear so many people just dig into as like why they don't like the show. But
And there, I mean, we'll get into this as the seasons go on, but there's certain episodes, different seasons where you can tell it was like a filler episode.
Yeah.
And you almost, you forget that back in the day when the season ordered or the network ordered a certain amount of episodes per season, you're not always going to have A+ material for every episode. Whereas nowadays on streaming, the creators,
8 to 10.
they
Yeah.
dictate how many will be not the streaming service. Like, it's so different.
It's so different. 'Cause, yeah, like you said, you're almost selling, like, I don't know exactly how it works, but you're almost selling like an almost like full-fledged product to these streaming services.
Yeah.
Or they're developing them with the creator all along, where, you know, I've read enough autobiographies to know, like, kind of a little bit how the pilot process works. And, like, you essentially do a pilot.
Yeah.
And you can't do much more than that because you're not getting picked up until then. Whereas I think when Netflix orders a show, they're like, here's 10 episodes.
Go for it.
And it doesn't hurt them that much if it sucks.
And it's like, how many times do you hear before the first season's even aired, it's like leading up, but because of the buzz, they pick up another season, and it's like, you have no idea how it's going to go.
Or they cancel. I mean, I will say that's the one thing that kind of sucks about this streaming thing is they'll order a season, and if it doesn't do well, then you're stuck with, you know, a cliffhanger at the end with no resolution.
That happens on network television, though, too.
Yeah, but I mean, when you're used to binging an entire thing and you're expecting, you know, to keep going because you just watched 10 episodes in a row, it does suck that, like, you spent 10 hours of your life and then that's the end.
It does feel almost like you're ripped off because, I mean, there's so much on streaming services that you're just like, how is this the line they're drawing for not ordering new shows sometimes? Because you're like, there's so much crap.
It's so weird. And I feel like for network stuff, like, I feel like you would hear that something was ending before the season ended.
True, there'd be promos and stuff. And
like, you would at least know. Like, when it comes to a whole season and then you find out, you know, a few months later that they're not picking it up again, like, you know, you go into it thinking like, oh yeah, it's gonna be cool. And then,
well, I think that's like they do that too on purpose, right? I think a lot of shows are like, if we leave it on a cliffhanger, maybe they'll be more likely to renew it. So anyway, it's just a fun kind of idea. And
thanks for the video, sending the video, Amanda.
And yeah, if anyone else has
I didn't cry, but
I also didn't cry. Okay, so I just want to warn everyone that this episode was very, very stressful. And so I have a lot of words that don't make, you know, like a lot of scribbles, a lot of caps. I don't know that I can entirely read my writing, so, like, bear with me. But anyway, it starts with, well, thanks, guys, for making a Canadian a creep. Oh my God, everyone, run. You know, I'm glad that there's some urgency here to help people instead of trying to punch each other. I'm glad, honestly, I'm so glad that Locke came with Jack because, as we can see, Jack can't do much. It's clear that Jack doesn't even know what he's doing. So that's great. So thank you, Locke. Jack, you're so rash. Is that the right word? Like Locke is right here. Yes, Locke, I'm agreeing with you so much right now and it's pissing me off. F you, Rory. Aw, thanks, Walt. And okay, Locke. Thank you. Don't bring the man with the child. Way to look out. Jack, is Locke teaching you how to track? I'm so proud. Jack, way to stand up to your dad. Oh, okay, you know what? Things are not great with Dad. Okay. You know what? Locke is too much this episode. Like, he is too good. Obviously not, Kate. He's been circling for this entire time. In the time that it took Locke to go back, get supplies, get people, and come back. Locke, this isn't the time. It's not your fault. It's not your fault that she's gone. And why is Locke the only sane one here? Oh my God. Dear Michael. Oh boy. You have a son. Have you seen him? Are you saying you are a second-rate citizen because you have a son to take care of? Be less proud. Your kid is probably spooked that someone was taken. He has no other children to talk to or play with. And you can't seem to stand him. And you constantly want to leave him, walk away, or run off to be a quote-unquote hero. So why not focusing on being who you think you are to your child? Signed, Teresa of the Oceanic Three. Oh, skipped a whole page there. Walt, coming in with the hard truths. You know, Michael, if south means hell, then you'd be correct. That is where you're going. Locke is too helpful to them. This is insane. Jack, you shut it. You walked around in circles. You calm down. You dick, you stop this. You know, I get that you feel guilty, but if you want a chance, you need to calm down a minute. You know, smart boy, Charlie, but you only have 4. L-A-S-T. How's that gonna work? What if it's a trap? Does his finger wraps point in a direction, Kate? How do you know which way? I'm glad we had 4 people to split evenly. How fortuitous. Okay, why do I love Walt and Sawyer together? They're so adorable. Also, Walt, has your shirt always been this long? I also enjoy this Boone and Locke friendship. It's pretty cute. You're all on an island together and no one seems to talk to each other until they're alone wandering through the jungle. Oh, Jack, you're a literal jackass today. Why now, bro? Why don't you start running around like a chicken with your head cut off again? I'm so mad at you right now. You know, maybe you should lose your license if you're drinking before surgery, sir. Did you sacrifice your niceness so people would live? Seems like a load of shit, man. This is definitely a moral dilemma, but I literally don't trust you, Christian, because you're also a manipulative bitch. Don't sign that. Do not. Jack, did you sacrifice your morals because you were manipulated? Really? Oh, Saeed, don't you look delicious. But, what are you saying, dude? Also, why is your hair still so pretty? You just ran far away. I think if Saeed and Sawyer teamed up, they'd be so badass together. But Sawyer, why can't you just be nice? Finally, someone other than Locke and Sun playing with Walt, for God's sake. Poor Walt. But he's right, 17th is not that great. What's it out of, 17? Walt, if you lost, would you have $20,000 to give to Hurley? What kind of wedding business? I don't like that every time someone asks Spoon what he does, he says he runs a business. Kind of seems like he doesn't know what his business is. Man, Locke is a badass. You predict this shit? Is that why he was being so weird before? Because he was like, shit, my badassery skills actually work and I can predict the rain. Maybe that's why he was sitting and smiling. Oh, come on, Kate. You climb better than that. Ethan, can we not? Okay, yes. Jack, get it? Oh my God. Is Ethan superhuman? Is he a ninja? Jack doesn't stand a chance. Kate, does that look like a bump? He looks messed up. And this is why Jack is freaking out. Oh shit, Jack. Oh my God. Oh, Charlie. Kate, hurry up. How the fuck did Ethan do this? Is this episode called Here's 45 Minutes of Severe Stress? Jack, don't forget to tilt the chin up. Also, isn't it 2 breaths? I don't know how people do this, honestly. Like, resuscitate people? I can't. Locke, help. Locke, help. In caps, you can all say it. It's not okay, Kate. Jesus, this is hard. Are his ribs not fucking broken? How long was he out? Will he have deficits? How long did he not have oxygen? Poor Charlie. I think I put too much faith in Locke. I was really skipping pages.
You were really.
Now what are this? And should you know? The end.
All right.
Very
Intense.
insightful as usual.
You know, it really, I think, kept with the tone of the episode.
Yeah,
It was
I
a very
agree.
stressful episode.
It was so stressful.
But I do think it's in one breath now. I think they changed it.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I didn't know about the breaths, but I had the same questions like, okay, Jack, whoa, you're going to break his ribs.
You would
100%.
I remember them saying, like, when you're doing compressions, like, you will break a rib. So if you're doing that already and then you start pounding on someone like that, like, shouldn't he have cracked a rib and maybe punctured a lung?
Maybe that's why he's not speaking at the end.
Yeah.
They're like, he's just not. It's like, no, he's dying.
Jack, actually.
He's in so much pain he can't actually form words.
Like, that was an intense scene.
Also, what are deficits?
Like from brain deficits from like not having oxygen.
Maybe that's why he can't remember. Maybe that's why he can't remember things. So
Maybe
we'll find out. Well, oakley dokley, doopily whoopily.
Let's get to it.
It's time for DHT. Dance Hot Takes.
Hello.
Alrighty, so Dan, tell us what you thought of all the best Cowboys have daddy issues.
First thing, and I'm looking at my notes here because I've started to take notes with the episodes to try and remember, and I think that's a sign of getting into it a little bit more. First thing I've written down here is no snakes. There's no snakes on this island, and it really hit me in this episode where they're running constantly through the jungle, and I just kept waiting for them to grab onto a snake by accident or to run into a snake on the ground, and there just doesn't seem to ever be any sort of, I mean, yes, there was the wild boars, but we haven't come across any other animals or so I don't know, that's just stuck with me because I feel you're in a jungle and you should be expecting spiders, snakes, any of these things to kind of be that kind of stuck with me throughout the episode. There just doesn't seem to be much for threats beyond now the other humans on the island, which actually is interesting that their biggest danger right now is the other people, and we still don't know. And I mean, going through the beginning of this episode, I did enjoy the practicality, but I do have to say that Kate is quick to volunteer and help. Often if, she's on the beach or in the caves, wherever she is, but something happens and she's quick to jump into action to at least try and help. Obviously she's limited to what she can do, but she's trying, so I have to give her some credit where credit is due. And I have to say that the lighting, this has been something that stuck with me for a few of the episodes. The lighting is really, really good in this show. Even just when they're in the jungle, they light it properly, and just the way that they get the light to go onto the actor's skin, it's a really good job. I don't know if it won any awards, but I have to say the lighting is top notch, especially being an outdoor based show. Now, Locke, I understand that he's a polarizing character, but again, I have to give him credit when he is the one thinking of everybody else on the island, when he tells Jack to not go after Claire and Charlie because he's the only doctor on the island. And I thought that was just a really, really practical. It's not, everyone of course wants to jump in and help, and you don't want to be like the one telling someone to stay behind, because obviously Jack is very capable to help. But, they really should be trying to not lose their only doctor. And I think that was a very smart part on Locke. And I really liked his line about, we have to get our clarity back. And I just thought, like, this sounds like divine clarity. Like, you can really tell that Locke is now starting to come at this from kind of almost a mystical angle. And I like that. I like that they're throwing that in there. I do laugh. I have a note here about Jack's 2000s bootcut jeans in the jungle. Everyone else is in like jungle wear, and then he's in baggy bootcut, which were really big in the 2000s. And again, just a very small, a lot of people might not notice it, but I just felt like that was like a little sign of the age of the show. And I smiled at that because I think we all remember those. And there was the frustration, obviously coming to really like Jack in this show, seeing him sign that form for his father after the malpractice in the operating room. And you just felt at that moment that was when Jack was finally going to stand up to his dad and make it right. So later in the episode, when he does finally come clean and puts the record straight, it just felt like a really big win for Jack, but also just for the viewers and for everyone at home, because he's clearly struggling, and it's he's manipulated and he's torn, but he does the right thing in the end, which you have to feel good about. Now Charlie, when he goes along with Claire, gets kidnapped, and eventually you think that he's dying, and I just kept thinking, my God, he can't be dying right now. This just seems so out of left field. So then you start to think, is this one of those cliffhangers? Is he actually going to die? But of course, there's a huge sense of relief, and that scene with them trying to resuscitate, or with Jack trying to resuscitate, and Kate again being the practical one, just trying to, at some point it's like, it does look like Jack is going to just lose it, and not cause more harm because the gentleman's already dead, but just really harm himself maybe, and blame himself for this, which he doesn't need to do. But thankfully Charlie comes back, and I think it's all around a decent episode. But the very end, laughing at Boone's mullet and bleached highlights. He has a little rat tail starting in the back, which is really, really funny. And him and Locke are looking at that, or discover the metal in the jungle and what we can assume is a bunker, and just laughing when you think, it's 2 weeks now on the island, and Boone thinks that the plane has already been overtaken by the jungle, by the wreckage of the jungle. He means well, not the brightest, but in general, again, I think this episode was good, and I would say that goes with the last episode as well, because even though, and I might have said this earlier, I'm not a fan of flashbacks, they're starting to intersperse a little bit more of the jungle life, or the jungle, the island struggles into it. So I do really appreciate the way that they're they're doing them, and the backstories that you are getting. I would say I'm hooked now. Especially, I would say these two, episode 10 and episode 11, would be the hook, because we start to just get a little bit more than a plane crash, or a little bit more than people have emotional baggage. So I would say episode 10 and 11, I don't know what their viewership was like, but it's a good set of episodes.
Well, lucky for you, when you listen to the episode, you'll find out what the viewership was. So what would you rate this out of 10?
This one would be...
Oh my God, I'm so nervous.
This one would probably be a 7.5.
Whoa, that's huge for Dan. That's really low for us.
I don't think there's ever an episode that will rate that low.
So actually, I'm trying to remember, because I don't keep track of my ratings.
We keep track of them.
I go on a whim. Maybe this one needs to be revised to a 7.
No. You said 7.5. That's what it is.
No, but I'm saying 7.5 just because I still liked episode 10 better.
All right, cool. Well, thank you very much, Dan. Great hot take and a lot of interesting insights. So thank you very much. We'll see you next week. So, can I just say, Locke is everywhere all the time, always. Like last week, he was just on the beach. This week, he's just in the caves. He's just everywhere.
Yeah, Locke likes to have his presence felt.
He sure does.
I'm just going to start out by saying, before we get into the thing, because I know that there are some people out there who think that we're harsh on the characters, particularly me. So I'm just going to start and say it for the meaning. I think Locke is amazing in this episode. I love Locke. I think Kate does a lot of good things in this episode.
Yeah.
I still hate her, but she does some good things in this episode, all of which will be undone immediately following in next week's episode. But for this episode, I was glad Kate didn't perish in the initial crash, like I'm always hoping is going to happen when I rewatch it.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, I mean, the characters change, not dramatically, but they change enough episode to episode that we can react to what their actions are that episode. It doesn't necessarily mean that our overall feelings of the character may change, but we can appreciate and applaud the positive things that they do, if they do them, and if they're genuine, or at least if we feel they are.
I don't like that you're looking at me as you do that. I feel like you think that I am unfair to one Mr. Michael, last name unknown.
Yeah, so starting off immediately when Jack and Locke go running for her in the... I love that, like, they're both just booking it through, trying to get her. Locke, like you said, is always there. And he is helpful. Like, he's standoffish in some ways, like with last week's episode, which we talked about, where he's just kind of like on the beach and not offering a lot. But when he has something to offer, he does.
Very substantial.
Yeah.
But, and so sideways to that is, all I could think of was back to irrational, crazy Jack. Like last week, he was so calm and he was like acting like a decent, good doctor in a sense. And it's just like, oh God, here we go again with Jack being just insane.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, he was all over the place. Like, he was not thinking clearly in any way, shape, or form.
No.
Like, Locke was right. Like, you do not need to go out there. There are enough capable people that could go. And, like, it's funny because his dad says, you know, like, sometimes, you know, you have to do what's best for, like, the greater good, essentially. Jack is not doing that.
I don't think Jack ever thinks about the greater good. At least very rarely. Yeah. It's always about the immediate threat and the immediate danger. What can he immediately do?
Yeah. Which is...
He doesn't have a lot of foresight for a doctor.
No.
But I guess if you're in the OR, which he is, he's an operating surgeon or whatever. He's a surgeon of some sort. I guess that...
He's a spinal surgeon.
Spinal surgeon, right. I guess that is sort of your MO if you're just... Your job is to fix that problem right now as it's in front of you. So it would be a good fit for him, but that doesn't excuse the way he acts.
No, and he gets... And we learn a little bit why he's so... Yeah. You know, I mean, we always learn it. We always say that at the beginning of the episode. When they start making these rash or terrible decisions, we're like, throughout the episode, we're going to see why they're acting this way. And you definitely do with this one as well. Yeah. And we kind of see right off the get-go. I should say, though, I do like when Locke and Jack are together. They really do make good counterpoints for one another. Because Locke is thinks things through. he's practical, he's resourceful, and Jack is hot-headed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
That being said, though, Jack reminded me of Locke in Walkabout when he was so determined to go after that boar. He wasn't listening to reason. He wasn't listening to Kate saying we should go back, Michael's hurt or whatever. He just doesn't give a shit. He's just going. And that just reminded me so much of Jack this episode. They were kind of similar in that way.
Except now Locke has clarity. And
Well, he found his clarity. That's right.
his clarity. But, like, is Jack going to?
I don't know. The other thing I thought of, like, especially in that first flashback scene with Jack operating, how crazy for this show, like the directors and the producers, they have to be experts at so many different types of shows. Like a medical drama now, all of a sudden they're filming in a way. Then they're filming an on-island mystery, which is sort of like supernatural sci-fi / dramatic. And then later we see they're filming like a cop drama style show. Like it's really crazy to think of how many different styles of shows they would have to film. Like you think like somewhere like ER, that's all they film. Something like Friends, it's just a sitcom. Something like Law and Order, it's just a cop legal thing. But they do it all in this. It's wild.
We were actually talking about this earlier. I actually also think that the operating room they use is probably more realistic looking. Like you watch like Grey's Anatomy and these like, and I get that I think in the States, obviously there's a lot of differences in the quality of hospitals. But I think the operating room in this probably looks more like a real operating room and not this like big fancy.
It's like huge auditorium.
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting little look into
neat.
Jack's life.
Should
and
we
kind
do
of the pressure he's under.
Should we talk about like flashback stuff
Sure.
first? Let's go over flashbacks. Yeah. So the operating room, so like Jack's operating on this woman and all of a sudden you just hear Christian in the background being like, call it Jack. And it's just like, ooh, first of all, I'm thinking, well, what are you doing there? Just watching him. But then you find out, well, first you see Jack doesn't want to call it. He's very determined, as would be very, Jack.
And which we'll see kind of that he hasn't changed.
Yeah. So it was interesting to see this flashback. And I think it just sort of sets a really interesting tone of the daddy issues and the parental issues. And maybe you start thinking, ooh, like, is this the falling out that led to Christian having to go to Australia?
Yeah, because his mom does say in White Rabbit that it's his fault he's there, essentially, right? That this happened. So I think we are kind of to believe that, because you don't really see the full fallout from this episode, but I think we're to be led to believe that he is his fall from grace.
Yeah, because she says, we don't have any more friends thanks to you, Jack. Like shit like that. And so like when he accuses him of asks, how many drinks did you have at lunch, Dad? He's basically saying you're drunk. Yeah. And then he says that again later. So like intoxicated. Super, super intense. And then Christian tries to manipulate him into signing essentially like the release form of some sort or in
the statement.
Yeah.
Which is just like, that's so selfish. Like, if I feel like, I don't know, if you're going to manipulate someone into signing something, then like you should then step down from surgery after that. You know what I mean? It just kind of seems like, well, you sign this and like everything's just going to be the same. Well, like I don't see a change. Like if you're going to ask him to do that, like you kind of have to give something in return. You can't just be like, well, I had to sacrifice, to do this. And it's like, well, again, give up your practice.
That scene is so good to me because like Matthew Fox is crazy in this episode. Like Jack is, I should say. Like I don't agree with 90% of his decision making, but he's obviously right about his dad. Like and clearly if Jack was able to, like if a nurse came to get him and Jack knew to come, this isn't the first time that happened.
Yeah.
And he even kind of alludes like, I know my limits, this and that. And it's like, but someone's dead.
Yeah.
And you can still see through that guilt trip that like this is a conversation that's clearly happened before. And you can see it. You can see Matthew Fox working it through in his head, where you see like the turmoil on his face of like, do I go along with this again? Like, do I rat him out?
Yeah. Like, what's my limit here?
Yeah.
How much am I going to go? How long am I going to go through this over and over and over again? And will it ever end? Like, is he just thinking maybe I'll just wait him out? He's bound to retire at some point. But yeah, really, really traumatic. And then there's that scene where Christian's like comforting the father who's threatening to sue, and Jack sees him rubbing his shoulder, and you can just see in Jack's face, he's just like disgusted.
Yeah.
Because he knows it was his fault. Like Christian's fault.
100%.
Yeah. leading to that sort of like formality in the boardroom of them trying to get the statement or whatever. And Christian's just so freaking phony. I hate it.
Yeah. And it's just like, you can tell, the flashbacks are obviously also always supposed to either advance like the story of why they're on the island, or advance some sort of character point that we're supposed to learn why someone is the way they are. And this was great for that in this episode, because we see a lot, why Jack can't let anything go.
Yeah.
And we see that he really, he can't in any aspect of his life. Like, at the end of the day, like, he maybe should have gotten someone else instead of going into that surgery when it's his dad.
Yeah.
Like, he should, like, I don't know how it works. I don't know how, whatever, obviously, but he went in and he took over and he made decisions and he was the fixer, because that's what Jack feels he has to do. And he can't just stay out of things. He rushes headfirst into everything. And we see that kind of when we go back and talk about how he's running off in front of to find Claire, and Locke's telling him, like, it's okay. We have to go back. Yeah. We have to get a search party. We have to, whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Do you think there was any, so they find out that the girl on the operating table was pregnant, and that's when Jack changes his statement and throws his dad, like, under the bus in a sense, but he's just telling the truth that his dad was intoxicated, and because of a mistake he made, that's why she died. Because he finds out she was pregnant. And then you kind of see on the island, he's chasing Claire, and she's pregnant. And so, there's got to be, obviously that was a parallel done on purpose. And Jack's thinking, I can't let this happen again. Like another, because he's feeling guilty. I didn't believe her. I didn't listen to her. And so he's feeling guilty, and Locke's feeling guilty too, in a sense, but that felt a little bit more phony to me.
Yeah.
Locke feeling like, oh, I should have known I was hunting with Ethan. I didn't really buy that from Locke.
No, I think that was just his way of trying to get rid of Jack.
I think so.
Yeah, like, because Locke makes a lot of good points. And I think part of it is that Locke wants to be the person who does, like, that's Locke's wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So we see Locke. So, I mean, that's really it for the flashbacks. Not to downplay it or whatever, because it's, like I said, it's beautifully acted. You see that Christian is a fucking monster.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, he has a problem, clearly. And for him to try to suggest that it's his job or it's this that led him to be a certain way. Like, we saw him talk to Jack like that his entire life.
He was 8 years old or whatever, yeah.
So he wants to control. And when father-son manipulation didn't work, he kind of tried to essentially suggest that his career could maybe be on the line, right? So
exactly.
He's using whatever tactic he can against his own son to get what he wants, and it's brutal.
I have a question for you guys. Okay, so Jack is a spinal surgeon, and spinal surgery is some of the riskiest surgery out there. And obviously, Jack can't let go. So how many times do you think Jack has either lost a patient and been forced to call it? And would he actually call it, or do you think he was forced to call it?
I think that if Jack truly felt that there was nothing more he could do, and it was entirely not his fault, that he would be more able to let go. But because in all the situations we see him with on the island, he thinks he's the leader, he thinks he didn't believe her, he thinks he didn't see something, he's always looking for more. I have a feeling he probably thinks that way in a lot of things he does. And so I think he probably blames himself and carries a lot of guilt and weight for every decision. But I guarantee you, if he couldn't call it when he needed to, he wouldn't be a doctor anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think this one was probably more difficult because he was feeling like he was fixing his dad's problem. And I think with his dad there, that's going to like dirty the waters in a sense. I think in your everyday surgery, of course, he's going to lose patients here and there. Not everybody can, survive in that sense, especially like you say, spinal surgery is so complicated and a lot can go wrong. So, but I think he would be the one that would try everything under the book instead of after the first time being like, well, I tried everything I could when not actually trying everything they could. Well, that would be Christian.
Hashtag Marshall.
Yeah, exactly.
I think what we're also kind of seeing, I think what we're supposed to take from this is that this isn't the first time that this has happened, like I said, with his dad. And so I do think he holds himself more responsible for not having done something about it sooner. And I think that was another reason he was kind of like, and like maybe the other times no one died.
Mm-hmm.
And like, but he was thinking like, and he probably told himself like when no one died before, like, okay, like no one died. It's my dad. He knows what he's doing. He's really good. He's only like a few drinks here and there or whatever it might be. And I think now he's probably telling himself like, this is my fault because I could have stopped this sooner and I have to now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that sounds 100% on brand for Jack. The thing I really liked about Locke in this episode was I loved how he was just like, he would put up like almost like a very minimal opposition and state like a fact. Like when Kate's like, well, I'm coming with you. Oh no, you don't have to. I'm coming. And
like,
he's just like, yeah, I figured you would. So, and then same with later when Jack's like, well, we should split up. And he's like, I don't think that's a good idea. Jack's like, well, we have to essentially. And Locke's like, okay, good luck. You know, like he doesn't fight people to the death like Jack does.
And it's the same with when when he's trying to tell Jack, like, you shouldn't come because you're the only freaking physician.
Exactly.
And I think Dan talked about in his hot take is so ridiculous. Like, he's so right.
Yeah.
Like, Jack, you're so valuable in so many ways.
You could fall and hit your head on a rock just by being stubborn. Like, you may not run into this crazy supernatural force or the person who took Claire, but you're just putting yourself in harm's way by making yourself go out there.
Exactly. When there's a lot of capable people out there.
Totally.
And like everyone, people are going to help. Like this is not a situation where you have to lead the charge. Like even Walt was like, I can take Vincent.
I know.
I was
So cute.
So cute.
Yeah.
And of course, Michael's like, because Michael's a terrible dad.
Michael.
I can't.
Okay, so like when Dan and I were watching this, and Michael goes, after that, Michael's, I was just like, oh my God, Michael. And he just starts laughing. He's like, I don't understand the hate for Michael.
Really?
And I'm just like, okay, he basically just tells Walt, like, no, don't be stupid. Like, there's more capable people who can do this. I'm going to help. What? Again, you're going to go put yourself in harm's danger and potentially get killed and leave your son with no parents one more time.
So stupid.
And then gets all pissy at Locke when Locke's like, no, we're good. Like, we don't need more people.
And he literally looks at Walt and is like, no, we're okay.
Yeah.
Like, did he not learn his lesson the last time he went and got speared by a boar?
And that's the thing too, because he's treating me like a second-class citizen. It's like, no, it's like they recognize that you have certain skills. Like when it came to the water and the tower or the caving in, I know Teresa doesn't love that.
I didn't say anything.
At the end of the day, they still did utilize his skill, right?
Yes.
Like everyone has something different to offer here. And the last time, like you said, he went out, he got his leg.
He screwed it up. Yeah, he screwed it up.
So he's so rude.
And I just hated when he was like, well, maybe I'll just have my own search party.
He's like, you do that.
Like so just childish all the time.
And he's just always, he expects people to like take his opinion into account every single time, but he's not like being rational about it. Like not like, what's your defense to why you should go?
So opposite to that, I love when Walt just like told Michael, like, Mr. Locke knows what he's doing. Essentially, like, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. I was like, yes, go Walt.
Well, exactly. Like, good for him for finally saying something. Yeah, like it's just, no, Michael is just next level.
I also really actually liked Kate in this episode.
Me too.
I thought she was really good. She like made valid points. She was constructive. She wasn't like overly emotional to Jack. She was actually like calling him out on stuff.
Like she was like, "Can I talk to you for a second?" And she's like, "Let him like
give him some space."
Because he was being ridiculous this episode. He was ridiculous to Locke. And I get that when he tells her like, "Oh, it's my fault," blah blah. It's fine.
That's fair.
Like, I get that you take on so much, but you can't. He lets his emotions carry the day.
Yeah, always.
Whereas where Locke is very good, sometimes too good, at separating emotion from almost every situation.
Yeah. No, but like Jack was also just like very mean to her. Like she made very valid points, and like when she, it's kind of similar to like, you know, when they were like, Shannon, you speak French, do this. It's the same with this. Like Jack is out of control, and now you're saying that because she like figured something out one time. He's like, we have 2 trackers, let's go. And
apparently we have 2 trackers. Yeah.
Like why don't you calm down?
Oh yeah, he was such an ass.
And then to like shit on her and be like, why do you know this? Like, this is the time. Like you said in your stream of conscience, like, this is when you decide to like call her out for this, like, about how she's not being honest with you. Like, I'm glad she kind of shit on him a bit there.
Same. Yeah.
What did he say? Something like, did you learn something honest?
Yeah, how about some honesty
before
for
or
once?
after you were on the run? It's like,
like,
okay. That's a low blow.
Remember when it was no one's business, Jack?
Yeah,
Honestly, if I were out, if I didn't care for Claire, I would just walk away. I'd be like, you know.
Well, that's just it, right?
She's a good person today.
You almost caught yourself.
I like her a lot in this too.
Yeah.
I think I liked her combo with Locke. I liked what she offered on the actual road. I liked the scene at the end.
You know what we like about Kate is when she's not dealing with her love life
Or her past.
Like that's when it's very clear that at the core she's a good, helpful person.
I disagree entirely.
She wants to be.
I wholeheartedly think I would like to remind you of that before we get into next week's episode, where we see more of Kate Austen's impeccably good nature.
No, I agree with what you're saying in the sense that when she's not like involved in the love triangle and dealing with her flashbacks, like she contributes positively.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe I shouldn't say good person, but she does contribute positively. That's exactly what it is. Like she's more likable.
Exactly.
Today.
I do think she's very helpful in this, and I think she shows a lot of emotional range and things like that. But you know who else is kind of cute in this episode? Sawyer.
Oh,
when he's talking
was.
His combo with Walt, so cute. His combo at the end with Saeed, very good.
Him and Walt, and him and Saeed, like Sawyer didn't punish him. Sawyer didn't try to kick his ass.
I didn't.
When he's down.
And I didn't get Saeed's like outburst there. Are you going to keep asking me questions I don't have the answer to? And it's like he was just asking you questions about your experience and you were essentially like encouraging it.
Also, he got his information from, I like when he said, why am I getting my information from a 6-year-old?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm 10. I also did not know how old Walt was.
And then he's like, well, it must be true then.
Yeah, right? But that's
so
exactly
good.
right.
Yeah.
Like, go to the source. I'm glad that he's not, just going on whatever a kid says and takes it as Bible, so.
Sawyer was really good in this episode too.
Yeah, and when he goes to talk to Saeed, it's just fucking brilliant. But we can.
Yeah. While we're on Saeed, was his shirt ever white? Or was it always gray brown? Because I'm trying to.
I think it's just dirty.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, is it just did
dirty?
it just get super dirty? Was it white?
I don't remember. I thought it was white at one
Same.
point.
I thought it was black.
Well, that would be extra interesting.
That's later season, Saeed.
I don't pay attention to it.
So, anywho.
Yeah.
Very important point that we really needed to.
I'm glad that people are dirty, other than Kate and Son. I think was the only one who was always like
Clean yourself
filthy.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jack.
That was a great combo with them, and just how like Sawyer is kind of like he's saying he doesn't forgive him, but he essentially is forgiving him a little bit, right? Like,
I mean, he kind of does in a way say like, I kept your fire going essentially.
I loved that.
To me,
so
that was like in
It's
a
like-
sense of like, okay, bygones are bygones.
Like he's like letting him know what's going on at the beach. He's like, I kept your
Truce.
thing going.
Truce, yeah.
Truce. And I do like that Saeed said that he was filled with shame and that's why he left. But I'm not going to lie. I think I would have a hard time if I was Sawyer. Like, what he did was awful.
Yeah. But,
But also the doctor watched it. Like, I mean,
and Sawyer says from the beginning, you got to think of the big picture. He's good at that.
he really is.
So
He really is. So again, Saeed's hair is too perfect for someone who ran through the jungle to find them. Like, I sleep on my hair and it's essentially a ball. He runs. He is held captive. He's electrocuted. He's fine. Not fair.
Well, I do want to talk a little bit about Locke and Boone because this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And, it's interesting because we'll talk about it a bit on Spoiler Island too, probably.
yeah.
But
Definitely.
I love their little convos. Like, I love that Boone's like, what did you do in the real
So
world?
cute. Yeah.
And Locke tells him the truth.
Yeah.
And Boone doesn't believe him.
I know. I love it. And Boone talking about like Star Trek and just like, it's nice to see Boone away from Shannon.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see Locke like just be kind of normal too. Like when he's like, well, sounds like a piss poor captain
Yeah.
or whatever. Like it's just, I like this side of Locke too, where he's just
Kind of just being chill.
Well, especially considering it's a pretty high stakes situation, and he's still like
At what point do you think he gave up on looking for Claire though?
15 minutes ago.
Because you can tell like it wasn't even on his mind anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he did say that they lost the trail. And I think right about when he lost it, he was like, well, like, what are we going to do?
Because he said something like, can't you feel it? Towards the end of the episode, right?
Yeah.
And like, so at some point, he noticed something or felt something that was drawing him towards
The metal.
something.
The metal, we'll call it that for
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting because these two will become, like, they're going to, and it's a little foreshadowing when they don't come back and Shannon says to Kate, you know,
I'm worried.
And she says, is there anyone that your brother's safe with? It's Locke.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, we'll see what happens with that because they've clearly stumbled upon something interesting. And we'll kind of see where it goes from there. But
Yeah, it was a good cliffhanger. But before that, you get the whole Jack versus Ethan boss fight.
It was a
Jesus.
terrible boss fight.
well, it just proved Locke right that if they
Yeah.
ran into him, Jack was
Yeah.
going to get his ass kicked.
Like, he swung, Ethan dodged, and then that was game over for Jack. Like, he was just
Well,
done.
Ethan does seem insane.
I don't know. Yeah.
Why
Like,
is he superhuman? Did you hear the punches land on Jack's face?
speaking of fandom, I remember when like this was on, and this might have even been later. I can't remember exactly when, but I do remember this always being a thing about like superhuman Ethan because
Yeah.
he's so freaking strong.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
And like that was like first you get the mic drop from the last episode where you realize he's not who he
Yeah.
says he is, and then you find out that he's like some sort of like superhuman fighter.
Because he's like dragging two people.
Yeah.
Clearly, well, against their will somehow. We don't know how. And then, yeah, he's a super fighter against Jack. Like,
Yeah, and
crazy
he
ninja.
hangs Charlie from.
Yeah, so high.
But just on a quick note before we move on to that, I just think it's funny in your stream of consciousness you said, of course, they made the Canadian Creeper. I don't think that he's not Canadian, but I think that he probably chose to be Canadian, not because he was trying
Canadians are unassuming.
No, I think it was because he assumed other people probably wouldn't ask a lot of questions about it.
Or is he from Ontario, California? Because there is an Ontario
There
in
is.
California.
I did find that out watching Nonstop Dan.
And he was,
Yeah, because he flew from there.
Yeah.
and he was going back to LA.
Maybe they're pretty close.
But didn't
together.
Hurley say something like, I love Canada, dude, or something? And
Yeah.
that's I don't know, whatever.
I mean, but
Yeah.
also Hurley makes a lot of assumptions. He still thinks,
He says, I love Canada because... And then he can't think of anything.
and he also still thinks that Sun and Jin are Chinese, or
Yeah, I know.
God knows what it is week to week. But like, he does make a lot of assumptions
Yeah,
too. So.
no, but that fight, as soon as Jack entered that little grove, I was like, oh my God, flashbacks to like Killer Ethan just
Yeah.
kicking his ass.
Like he got it handed to
Yeah.
him. Like he did not stand a chance. Like that was some Captain America kind of thing.
And Kate just being like, oh, some bump on your head. You bumped your head.
Like look at
Okay.
him. He's on the ground. His face is messed up. He looks like he's literally been dragged through the mud by a superhuman man.
I mean, it's so anyway. He's knocked unconscious and he's whatever happened. Kate comes. They eventually find Charlie. That scene is very jarring. Like just even seeing him in the tree is
It's
quite for network
traumatizing.
television
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That was
in
so
2004.
It was very traumatizing. Yeah.
That was intense.
Like he is
He
messed.
looks messed up.
And I just
And
like,
yeah, no, I was just gonna say, and the whole idea of like watching them in like real time, trying to cut him down. I got goosebumps.
Me too.
yeah. And I was gonna say, like, I like the detail of like it did just rain, so he's having, Jack's having a hard time
Yeah.
holding him up, and then Kate, as much as she is the master climber that we all know her to be, is struggling because everything's like wet, and then she can't reach it because of course she doesn't have stretchy arms, and him trying to like walk him over.
Yeah, her
Yeah.
saying like bring him closer. Like it was very. I do know that critically, this scene is considered one of the best of the
Really?
whole show.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Awful but good.
But yeah,
Well, and then just when Jack is trying to save him, it's incredibly moving. When he does get Charlie down and he's trying to save him, like it just goes on and on and on. And it's just like, I know Charlie survives, but I was getting emotional thinking he was gone.
I said the same thing to Teresa. I'm like, I absolutely know he's
Yeah.
in like not. This is not Dominic Monaghan's last episode.
No.
And why am I crying? Like I was bawling along with Kate.
Yeah. And like her, like, I think all the acting was really well done because like Kate reacting to it was very like emotional, and you could sense it and feel it and empathize. And then Jack just like taking out all his like daddy issues of what he's going on and be like, I'm not losing another person. I'm not losing it. I'm going to get him back, and not giving up, and then giving up. And then getting that second wind, and it's just like, holy shit, I can't take this.
Like he had accepted it.
Yeah.
And then her kind of reaction to him going back.
Yeah.
I feel like that was very realistic because like if you were watching that, like he looks like he's lost his mind.
Yeah.
And her reaction is so believable in that.
Oh yeah. Because how long do you let it keep going? Because when she's like, it's okay, and she's like trying to comfort him, and then he like stops, and then when she just can't watch, but like she can't do anything else. It's just like you feel like your breath kind of catch, and you're like, oh my god.
But like, and having seen all the show or the episodes and knowing the soundtrack, like it was that piano music that is usually not a good sign that they started playing. I was just like, oh my god.
I know.
Here we go.
Yeah, I love the music. It's so beautiful.
And I remember watching the first time being like, are they going to kill a main character off 10 episodes in? Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
And then you see that they don't, but lots of shows do now. Like that would be a perfectly
believable moment. But like they stretched it out perfectly enough that it didn't feel unbelievable. Like a part of me was like, oh, it's possible like to go that long, but it wasn't like enough that it pulled me out of the moment.
No, like I think we have to assume that essentially right after Ethan leaves Jack, he's like, fuck these guys. And he goes to kill him, and then Jack wakes him and comes and finds him.
Yeah, because Kate does say, or Jack does ask like how long he was out, and like he knows that like something is going to happen, and he immediately goes to like figure out what's happened or whatever. So I figure it can't be that long, but also superhuman Ethan. Like you don't know if he just hucked him up there and whipped a vine around his neck and it was done. You know, like whoa.
But like we were kind of saying earlier in the episode when. Like in our episode, when we were saying like that was maybe going to be the cliffhanger. I'm so glad they didn't do that because that, and maybe if they had, it wouldn't have been as dramatic of a way of like reviving him. I don't know if that was still going to be the plan, but if it was, then that fits perfectly as the like kind of like climax of this episode. Because the thing with the flashbacks that I love is it often mirrors not only just like the storyline. I think I've said this before, but the storyline or like whatever, but it often mirrors the tone. Like last week's episode when she's having scary nightmares, we're also seeing these like scary interactions with that psychic. And for this one, like this idea of like him not having any autonomy over like saving people and like his dad fucking up and things like that, just like kind of comes to this whole climax of this idea, like you said, he's not fucking losing Charlie. And I don't know if he would do that if he wasn't also kind of experiencing these like overwhelming emotions. Right?
And we wouldn't have felt it the same way as the audience either, because it would have been too long of a break between it happening. And so, no, I'm really glad that they changed it. It worked perfectly.
I prefer, because I know sometimes on some shows where they have someone, you know, whether or not they're going to live or die, like go to the next episode. But the problem with that is like, if they bring him back, you know, the next episode, it's like, okay, then what? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you almost needed to have it all together so that you could then focus on the other shit that like we've just discovered. Like there's just so much going on in the episode already. Like you needed to wrap something up.
Yeah. And I liked the cliffhanger they left on because it was like a very more in tune with like what the hell, like where are we, right? Like they find this metal in the woods that sounds hollow underneath, like some sort of door. And so that's more in line with like the cliffhanger of the island. Like, where are we? Where are they? So I think they ended it properly, like in the right way. I think they made the right call.
Agreed.
I love Walt and Hurley playing the game together.
I'm glad that Walt has another friend.
Yeah.
Because it's surely not
It was
his
so
father.
funny. Like, it's such a traumatic and like insane episode. That was needed.
A little bit of levity.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to see that people are not forgetting that at the core of this, Walt is a 10-year-old child.
Yeah.
Because someone else forgets.
And then just a last tiny little bit is that they do stumble upon Boone and Locke. We've mentioned already, but they stumble upon some sort of metal that we're gonna, I would imagine, see
and I
in the
think
next
that's
episode.
what's interesting about having it in that way is because, you know, Boone stupidly is like, is this part of the plane? Like Dan said, like it's been 2 weeks.
The jungle's grown over it.
Yeah, like no. But at the same time, you're just kind of like, as much as you're like, oh, what is this? It's also like, okay, and like there could have been shipwrecks before. Like we know that Danielle ended up there. Like, is that what it is? Like, you don't know.
Yeah, it's a good mystery.
So it's like, do we care? Obviously we do, but like, why?
Before we rank it, just one final kind of thought question. How do you guys feel about the fact that we're getting another Jack flashback when there's still like a lot of members? Like, we got a Sun flashback, and I guess it's a half Jin flashback, but we haven't really had a Jin flashback. We haven't had a Hurley flashback. We haven't had a Boone or Shannon or Michael flashback. Like, do we like that we're seeing Jack again? Or would we like to have seen kind of one of everyone first? Like, how do you guys feel about that?
It's funny because it did, at first, you think, oh, a Jack again? But it had to have been Jack for this episode.
No.
That doesn't mean that, like, this episode... See, and that's the thing, like, the way the season's formatted, I think the way they're running the episodes, order of them, it had to have been Jack for this to work. But that being said, I did feel a little like we're kind of getting robbed of someone else's backstory.
Right. Okay, should we get into Teresa's rankings?
I didn't
I'm so
answer the
sorry.
question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm so sorry. Teresa, I'm sorry. Just because he's distracting.
This is why I don't.
No. I'm totally sorry.
I already screwed up too because I said we should rate it, and then before you have to do your own.
I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. I was totally joking. I think that when it comes to, I think that I think the hard part is sometimes when we have large casts like this and we're doing flashbacks, some people think that there has to be like an order, right? So you'd be like, Kate, Jack, I don't know who was next.
So,
no, Jack, Kate, Locke, and you know what I mean? Like, you'd go through one of everyone and then loop back over and then do it again. But like, nothing about the show is like that linear.
Mm-hmm. That's a good
so
point.
like, it doesn't make sense that you would have like the order doesn't matter.
I don't really care about the order though as much as like I'm just really curious, particularly about Michael's.
But like, when you think about it, like, do you really care? Like, Michael fighting for the fact that he wants to be a part of the search party, like. I mean,
Well,
I know.
Yeah.
like, it wouldn't give enough to like.
No, I get it.
To move it forward.
What about you? Like, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I do wish that they would kind of delve into it. I don't think it has to always then repeat or whatever, but I think that it would have been kind of nice to get some. But I trust that we're being told the information we need to know in the moment. And I do agree that for this episode, that's what we needed to have. But I just mean like maybe there could have been other episodes before this kind of thing.
Honestly, I didn't even notice that it was Jack again. Like, in my mind, it like didn't even register as like a thing. I was like, okay.
Walt! It's time for Teresa's rankings.
Okay, well, as we start with Michael, we'll start at the bottom. At number 14 with negative 1,370, we have Michael. Then at number 13, we have Shannon with negative 615. Kate, number 12, with negative 210. Jin, negative 60. Rounding out the top 10, Boone with 60. Everybody else is now in the positives.
There we go.
Sawyer, 110. Number 8 is Walt with 145. Number 7, Saeed with 260. Claire at number 6 with 375. Now we're into the top 5, starting with Jack at number 5 with 585. Then we have Locke, who climbed an extreme amount this episode due to his just being the voice of reason. With 640. Then coming up with very close, 5 points away, number 3, Sun with 645. Then we have Sweet Sweet Hurley, 710. And still at number 1, we have Charlie with 760.
Wow. Some hefty rankings there.
Mm-hmm. We're starting to get a lot of like
Some
momentum
major movement
and
here.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
the more intense it gets, like I think that people are just there's so much going on that like they're getting points like left and right.
If you're falling behind on the rankings, go to our Facebook page to see the weekly updates, and you'll be able to follow it there. There's graphs and charts, and it's really fun to watch because
It's fun to see how it changes episode by episode.
Exactly.
It's fun to see how much more Michael can get in the hole.
Yeah, he never moves up.
I don't remember if he gets better.
I will guarantee you he will not ever
don't
break the positives. I can say that
Really?
with 100% certainty.
I'm not sure he's ever gonna get off the bottom.
I honestly don't remember.
It'll depend. You know what? We'll talk about it on Spoiler Island next time because I have a theory that at a certain point he will not be at the end. Maybe we'll see.
Okay. If you want to hear about Amanda's theory about when Michael may or may not get off the bottom, subscribe to our Patreon. You can find it at letsgetlostpod.info. It's only $3 a month.
All right, and now time for our rankings of the episode.
So I forgot to give you guys the stats. So this one had 18.88 million viewers. So again, higher than last week. So it's continually going up. 8.8 out of 10. So again, quite high. Like that's pretty high. We're on day 16 on the island. 2 nicknames. Do you remember what they are?
One is Tattoo.
Yeah.
For Walt.
Yeah.
From Fantasy Island?
No.
Is that what it's called?
It's directed towards Jack, but not said to him.
No, just from, Tattoo is from Fantasy Island.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Sorry. Yeah.
It's directed at Jack.
He's talking to Saeed and he says, Dr. Do Right doesn't trust me with my meds.
Oh, that's fair.
So yeah. So pretty funny. It's only 2. He's waning.
Okay.
But IMDb gave it 8.8 out of 10. What do we give it?
Well, we know Dan gave it a 7.5.
7.5.
I predicted he was going to give it an 8, so I was pretty close if you round up.
I would give it a 9, I think. I love this episode. It's a little traumatic for me. I think Locke's right in it. I love Boone and Locke together. I just love from the beginning them just running in the jungle for her. And then that scene at the end with the Charlie, I can see why it's still considered one of the best scenes of the whole series. It's so well done. It's so emotional. Even knowing he was going to survive, you still are like on the edge of your seat. That's good television.
Yeah.
I hate Jack's backstory in this in the sense that I feel like it's awful, but it's well done. And Matthew Fox is such a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really a shame that his personal issues prevented us from really having more of him in the last recent years. He's kind of back into some stuff, but he really is a phenomenal actor.
Mm-hmm. So 9. Teresa, what do you give it?
I'm going to give it a 9.2.
Nice.
I actually really like this trio, like 9, 10, 11, as like a cluster of episodes. I like the lightness of 9 because that's we had like, we're like, things are getting better. And then we had the trauma of 10 with Claire. And then now we have just a lot of drama with like a slight bit of relief with more drama and then more confusion. So I like them as a little trio. So I like it. I like the way it like kind of caps off.
Sort of like mid-season hump, really.
And then you like want to keep like Dan is clearly hooked. Like,
you won't admit it, but he is.
Yeah. So I'm going to give it a 9.2.
Okay, I give it a 9.1 just because I feel like I'm going to meet you in the middle. So minimal. But like, all the same reasons. It was a great episode, and it's hard to beat these like spectacular episodes that are minimal in scope when you look at the whole series, in a sense, but also so epic and huge in the way that they film it and the acting and the story being told. So I loved it. Yeah, 9.1.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in again to this week's episode of Let's Get Lost. And you will hopefully be joining us next week when we talk about the episode that is, spoiler alert, a Kate-centric episode. Don't forget to follow us on our social media, Let's Get Lost.pod, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and email us at letsgetlostpod@gmail.com. Bye.
Bye.